Okay, get on. Off you go then, please.
Lovely. Cheers, Brian. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Graham.
Hi, mate. Listen, I should imagine it's probably all a bit raw still after yesterday, but can I just sort of follow up with your thoughts on the pitch and whether it was fit for purpose for a test match, and maybe have you had any discussions, or are you thinking about having any discussions with the ICC, to do it as respectfully as possible?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, sort of just to follow up on what Joe said really yesterday. I mean, Joe got 5 for 8, but at the same time, whatever the pitch did or didn't do, India ultimately played better than us on that surface. But it probably pushed us to the extremes of what most of our players, if any, have experienced.
In terms, though, of formalising any discussions, I'm not saying you're going to go complain, but a test match that finishes within 2 days, the shortest test match since 1935. It's not a great spectacle. I'm sure you don't like it. The BCCI don't like it either. Is there any redress to the ICC here?
Listen, we'll be talking about certain things behind the scenes, obviously, as you probably know. But at the same time, I can imagine. We're disappointed that we sat here when there should be 3 days of cricket left, and I'm sure there's a few spectators are as well. But unfortunately, the game did finish. We are where we are. So, I mean, from my point of view now, it's heading to the next game. And how do we sort of make amends and make sure that we come out fighting for the next one and hopefully draw the series?
Chris, obviously, just the unique way that cricket, the sport has to be played at the moment. It's in the same venue again now for the final test match. Do you know what pitch is going to be played on for the final test match? Listen, no. I was speaking to Monty Panesar quickly yesterday, and he was explaining the soil types. There's red soil and there's clay there. Are you hopeful that the wicket will be at least flatter?
I would like it to be, obviously. That would obviously suit our game plan and our players better and give them more opportunity to obviously go out and score runs. And we can see some of our top class players, which we do have, go out and show off their skills. So yeah, I would like it to be flatter, but we'll see obviously in the coming days what the wicket looks like. And we'll take it from there, really. So, I can't really answer that question right now for you.
In terms of, a tour of India is a very, very hard place to go. Do you have any regrets, with hindsight, of team selection, Chris, that maybe when you play in India, regardless of the pitch, going with 2 spinners? Is that a regret?
Well, as I've already said, Joe Root's got 5 for 8. So actually, the second spinner did all right for us. But we did expect the wicket to hold up longer than it did, to be honest, having looked at it. And equally throughout training, using the pink ball and looking back in history on pink ball tests, the ball swung for us. Jimmy and Co all got movement with the ball during practice. So we genuinely felt that we had the right side out there with the experience that we had. And having two of our bowlers in the top 10 in the world in the rankings, we felt that with this pink ball, it would have been an opportunity for those two to obviously make a big impact in the game for us. Hence, the selection we went for. So it's not that we didn't think about it. Obviously, there's a lot of logic. We'd looked at the history and looked at the stats and taken notice of what happened during the training sessions. Both bowling in the nets and bowling out in the middle, and tried to come to a conclusion that way, really, of how we best use a pink ball.
When you look at it, the bowlers actually bowling India out in India for under 150 is a pretty good performance. But it's how the batters can improve now. Between now, you've got a week now until the next test, Chris. How can the batters improve? Is it in such a short space of time, the way that maybe the ball is coming on quicker at times, whether it grips, whether it's playing later, not losing the triggers earlier. What are you going to be looking at to work with the batters over the batting group over the next week?
Well, I think it's something that probably both sides are going to be asking as well, because, let's not forget they lost 8 wickets for 47 runs as well. So, a little bit of perspective here. It's not just our batters that struggled on that surface at times. But it is, Trotty and obviously Forpy are working very hard with the batsmen at the moment, sharing ideas, trying new things, and just basically discussing what we can and can't do against, obviously, Axar Patel. I mean, he's proved difficult, but on surfaces where one spins and one doesn't, it's quite difficult for them to play. You know what I mean? And it's proved the amount of LBWs bowled that both sides have had. It's not been easy at all. So I should imagine both teams are talking about the same sort of thing. But certainly our batting coaches are working hard, like I say, sharing ideas and trying to come up with, counter actions against what we could face in the fourth test ago.
Chris, just another question from me. Obviously, nobody wanted that test match. Well, very few people wanted that test match to wrap up within 2 days. There was a tweet from an England women's player, as Alex Hartley, which was clumsy, ill-judged, silly. It's not for me to judge it, but obviously a couple of the boys reacted to it. Rory Burns, obviously Ben Duckett back in the UK as well. Just your thoughts on the text, and also just did you speak to Rory about removing his post? It wasn't rude or defamatory, but it's just an uncomfortable situation, isn't it, when something like this happens?
Listen, I mean, it's not for me to judge either on that one. That will be dealt with back in England, obviously. So it's for me. I don't worry about things like that. I've got more on my plate at this end to worry about. That's what I'll be encouraging the boys to do as well. Keep ahead in what's happening here.
Chris, listen, thanks ever so much for your time. I'll pass you back to Brian, but thank you for your time, mate. Best of luck now for next week.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Geraint. Scott Taylor, please.
Good afternoon, Chris. Obviously, it's not ideal having a test match finish inside 2 days, we know, but looking forward more long term, you've got a lot of players in that test side who are at the infancy of their test careers. How big a learning curve was that for them to experience these conditions?
Listen, I think you brought up a really good point there, and certainly one that I was thinking about last night, really. If you look at the guys that we've got in there, there with your Popes, your Crawleys, your Sibleys, all these guys that are coming through, this experience, as tough as it is at the moment, will hopefully galvanise them. And when they do get on flat surfaces, better surfaces, will make them even more hungry and desperate to make sure they get the runs on those surfaces. So, when we travel to other countries such as Australia, hopefully, if they get themselves in, they'll get greedy and go big. And that's when it comes back into our game plan of, making big individual scores, big first inning scores, which, until recently we've been very good at, and creating big partnerships. And hopefully this experience will just harden them towards that and make them potentially just appreciate the flatter wickets a little bit more and make them more greedy for it. But equally, it's hopefully that they do take a lot from it, and they can, next time they come onto a surface or experience a situation like this, it won't be as much of a shock to them. And hopefully they will have had to think about how they use their skills to combat what's in front of them. So, like I say, as tough as it is, as painful it is as it is at this moment, hopefully we can take some good lessons. So I think it's a really good point you make there.
And you saw 21 of the 30 dismissals through balls that straightened on. And was it a case of the batsman going into the game plan with a lack of clarity and maybe playing for balls that were expected to turn but didn't? And again, what can you learn from this going into the fourth test?
Well, I think, Joe mentioned a few things around the cricket ball, really. Maybe the lack made it skid on a little bit, but got to give their spinners some credit here. Obviously Ashwin's a world-class spinner. I think was his second fastest to 400 wickets, which is a fantastic effort. So, firstly, we're up against a class act there. And secondly, I thought, Patel, he was very accurate. For him to turn up first ball and hit middle stump, I think it was, to me, it just shows that this, he's accurate. And when some balls turn and some don't, it's difficult. But equally, we've got to find a way, because if we see it again, obviously we've got to be able to combat that. But I think the experience will stand them in good stead. And I know they are talking and working hard with the batting coaches to come up with a method that they can obviously implement their skills towards. So it is difficult. And as I say, it's not just our batsmen that struggle with that. If you look at how many LBs were on the Indian side as well, it's both sides that have struggled.
You mentioned the batting coaches there, Graham Thorpe and Jonathan Trott. We had Kevin Peterson part of the Talk Sport team for this second test, and he said he would jump at the chance to help some of these young players out in India. Would that be an option you would like to explore?
Listen, I'm open-minded to everything, as I've always said. But I mean, I do believe that the two guys we've got here are top. I mean, the class acts as well, and I've got every faith in Graham and in Trotty. I mean, so I know the batsmen are in good hands, but hey, I'm always open.
And there's a lot of talk, just finally for me, about Joe Root 5 for 8. You've mentioned it already in this press conference. There's a few people that are saying, well, if Joe Root can take 5 for 8, that says everything you need to know about the pitch. But is that underappreciating Root's ability as a bowler? Because I know he works hard at it.
He does work very hard at it. I mean, he's always in sort of Jason's ear about helping. Sort of bowling, spin, and working on things. And I'm always saying to him, you underbowl yourself. But Joe being Joe, he tends to give other people opportunity before he'll do it himself. But he had to do it this time, and he got 5 for 8. But equally, I think Joe's right. If he's getting 5 for 8, then.
Cheers, Chris. All the best.
Thank you.
Paul Newman, please.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Paul.
You said to Garant that there will be discussions behind the scenes when he mentioned the pitch. Could you elaborate on that, please? Do you mean with Javagal Srinath?
Listen, we've spoken to Javagar, as you probably already know, but not about the pitch. So it's, I think Joe and I have got to sit down and have a conversation about the rest of it, really, and see where we go with it. Because certainly, we have to accept that we do have to get better on these pitches. We've got to accept that there's places that we could have improved. So you look at the first innings, we had an opportunity there to maybe score more runs. And next time, I would hope that we'd pounce on that opportunity and obviously make the best use of the pitch when it was fresh. But at this moment in time, it's I've not really got anything to add on that on the subject of the pitch.
So you think you have to accept any service you get when you're overseas? I'm
not saying we just accept things, but I'm just saying at this moment in time, I don't think I'm certainly not in a position to talk openly about what we should or shouldn't do. It's a conversation between myself and Joe at the moment.
And could I just double check on personnel, please? Is Chris Woakes the only man going home now?
He is. He's gone home already. He's gone back. It was his scheduled time to go see his family, so he's headed back. So he's the one that's gone home as of yesterday.
Thank you.
Yesterday.
Thanks, Chris.
John, please.
Chris, hi. I was going to ask you to sort of clarify those behind-the-scenes talks. I mean, do you think it's a possibility that there might be some sort of formal complaint lodged?
Listen, John, I'm not going to divulge any. I'm not going to go into that conversation at the moment. It's something that Joe and I need to talk about. So I've really got nothing else to tell you at the moment on that subject.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's not going too bad. I mean, you have won 3 out of 5 Test matches on turning pitches this winter, so it's not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination, is it? So, county cricket better than most. Do you think there's anything that could be done with the structure and particularly the fixture list to improve batsmen's play against the turning ball?
Well, I mean, certainly one thing that we have spoken about, and I'm sure you guys have as well, is obviously making sure that we've got good wickets to play on in county cricket. That would help us. It'd help us in a number of ways. Firstly, obviously, batsmen getting to spend time at the crease and building bigger innings and getting used to batting for longer periods of time. But equally, a byproduct of that would be that the spinners get to bowl more, which means obviously it's improving our spinners and our batsmen will face spin more. So I think, that's certainly one area that we could potentially look at, but I don't know how easy it is just to say, well, we'll just make pitches better.
Just on the Essex thing, I mean, Simon Harmer's over the last year or two, he seems to have gone one way and another, saying he'd like to try and qualify for England, now he's given up on it and so on. Where does that stand? Is he now a non-runner as far as England's concerned?
Well, he doesn't qualify, does he? So it's not really a conversation, really. The fact is he doesn't qualify.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Will McPherson, please.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Would you be able to give us a sense of how Dom Bess is? Obviously, he was left out for Moen and then left out for Seamer, kind of on 2 pitches where I imagine he might have quite enjoyed bowling. Is he kind of selectable for the 4th test? Is he considered in contention, or is he still kind of away working on his game, as Joe said, ahead of the 2nd test?
Well, listen, he's in contention. Obviously, it was left out, and Mo played in the second test. He was given a break after that first one. But equally, I mean, as I explained earlier, he was left out of this one because of potential movement. We could have got out of a pink ball through training and everything. So we just thought, how do we make best use of this pink ball, and how do we make best use of what we've got available to it? And as I said, we've got 2 bowlers in the top 10 there. And if they can move the ball around, we're a handful. And as I say, all the evidence we had is that the pink ball did move around in training. They were moving it around, sort of balling in the middle and in the nets. So, I mean, from Bessie's point of view, I wouldn't breathe too much into that. He's played an important part in helping us win games in the past as well. And I'm sure he will do in the future.
We sort of know him for his confidence and being a chipper lad and up and about. Has he retained that, his sort of natural instincts there, even through a tricky little period?
He has. He's been great around the group, but we've actually got. I mean, we have got a very good group of players here that do get around each other, help each other out, and keep each other going really, which you have to do sort of in bubble life, which is what we're living at the moment. So we're lucky that we've got that sort of environment. So he's been great around the group.
Dean Wilson, please.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
I suppose you can get stats to prove anything you want, really. As happy as you were about winning 6 away from home and 6 in a row on the subcontinent prior to these 2 defeats, the stats also show that against New Zealand, Australia and India, the sort of the 3 teams above you, the 3 teams fighting it out for a World Test Championship, England have won just 1 game out of 25 against them away from home, losing 17. That's a pretty sort of damning trend over a long period of time. Are you concerned about just how far you might be away from the big boys?
Listen, we completely accept that we're not a finished article. Am I concerned? I'm not concerned. It's a work in progress. We knew that when I came into the job, and we knew we were going to have to work hard to build on it, and we knew who we were chasing. So for me, it's just we continue working, we continue building, and we continue to try to chase them down.
But does it kind of tell you anything about how much work you've kind of got ahead of you? I mean, do you feel as though after 2 defeats in that manner, where I suppose the style of defeat has been consistent, that you just chalk it up to that type of cricket, or do you actually feel that you've got a bit more work to do across the board when you bring in New Zealand and Australia, and of course Australia being the main focus as you build towards those Ashes at the end of the year?
Listen, both sides struggled on most surfaces. So again, we've got to keep perspective. But equally, we accept that we've got to get better as well. If we want to be world number 1, we've got to accept that, we have to learn from what we've got in front of us. We're not going to get everything right. We accept that as well. But as long as we're learning, we're building, we're moving forward, the players are gaining experience, we will keep getting better. And if we keep doing that, then we will start sort of bucking that trend, and we'll start winning. And not just start, but we have been winning.
And just a final thought from me. Just a final thought. The fact that India obviously have been pretty impressive in their home conditions on those challenging surfaces, but just a matter of days before this series started, had turned Australia over in their backyard. Do they kind of illustrate the standard to which you aspire to, and do you feel as though you might be able to learn something from them over the course of the next 5 days when the next test takes place?
Yeah, listen, India are a fine test side, we know that. And what we have learned is obviously from their, them winning Australia, is that it can be done. You can go out there, we'll take the lessons from that. We had a look at how they won. So we're already sort of looking at how they won in Australia. And we'll take the lessons from that and see how we, fit what they did into our game plans, and can we use that? So yes, I'm constantly watching oppositions, how they play, what are the methods. So we'll take every lesson we can and learn from them, and endeavour to keep getting better.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Dina.
Ali Martin, please.
Hi, Chris. I was just wondering
Hiya.
if it was just asking a bit much of Johnny Bairstow to fly home, be at home, spend time with his family, come back straight into the sort of white heat in the middle of a series where the ball's spinning a lot. Is that asking a lot too much of the player, or is that just how we have to accept it?
I think it's for life that we're living at the moment. I mean, it's, you know, I've said this quite a lot, obviously, but we are in strange times, and we've got to react and try and look after our personnel. And sometimes that means that people go out and come back in. I think, you know, I mean, it was tough for Johnny, but it's been tough for everybody on those conditions as well. You know, I mean, it's not just Johnny that, you know, I mean, struggled on that surface. And as I've said before, I mean, India lost 8 for 47, and they've got some fine batsmen in their camp as well. But it's, again, you know, I mean, we know he's a good player of spin. We've seen that time and time again. We've got every confidence in him. And like I said, we know he is a good player, and he's got a lot to contribute to the side. Hence, he played.
Yeah, and just a sort of more broader one. How with the sort of messages that you're giving to the guys after a defeat like that, what's the balance you strike between saying, you know, don't worry, lads, there were ridiculous conditions, the ball was skidding on, India's batsmen struggled, Joe Root took 5 for 8, etc. What's the balance between telling them that side of things so that they don't get too down on themselves, but at the same time, the other side of it is where they need to improve? You know, how do you strike that balance?
Well, I think it's just an honest, sensible conversation, to be honest, which is exactly what we had. I think, you know, I mean, both Joe and I, and probably the players as well, accept that we missed an opportunity in the first innings to score more runs. Had we have done that, then the game could have been different. And, you know, I mean, second dig, as tough as it would have been, had we got levelled with them with less wickets down, I mean, could the game have been different then? But, you know, I mean, I think the one thing for me would have been that first innings, you know, I mean, the position we're in, could we have capitalised more on that? But it's just a sensible conversation that, you know, I mean, yes, we can't get too down because everybody has struggled. I mean, every batsman struggled on this surface, you know, I mean, to a degree. But equally, if we see this again, I mean, where can we pick off the little learnings here? You know, I mean, what could we have done better? And that's an example of one of them.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, everyone. Thank you very much indeed. Take care, and we'll see each other, no doubt, over the coming days. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.